Welcome one, welcome all. I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, AP after 45K in 2 days, 21K last night, 24K on Monday Night Football, all with the help of SaberSim and everything else in between with our RPS content. It's just been an awesome sight to see AP with a 4-man Nugget starter stack last night with running it back with Prince. And then who were those last three? It was Devin Booker, Yusuf Nurkic, and then was it Saric as that last piece, AP? How's it going?
Actually, that I was high on Sarge, but I think that was the Sarge fade build. I was fading him there at the end. It was Prince that was the other value piece. There was like a Sarge build lurking that needed, I think, 4.5 or 5 points, and I would have gotten jumped, but he got benched, and we were good to go. I mean, we were good to go, and it was a ton of fun. And I do have to credit SaberSim a lot. And, obviously the contest sims has really helped with what I'm doing and my style, too. And we're going to get into it. And Jordan's going to – I'm honestly, still learning and everything. But every time I do a show with you, Rubio, we do them on, Mondays and Thursdays. And then even going back to last year with Jordan doing those shows every week. And I think what we're going to try to do is bring Jordan in here at least once a month, maybe twice a month, since now we have NBA, we have NFL, and we want to continue to learn and get better using these different features. But with my style, and then naturally when you run the contest sims and you sort it by risk adjusted, it really fits in well with my style because I already take a very aggressive approach. And it just helps to diversify me. And you'll see when we talk about it, my other big thing is I'm huge. Anyone knows me. I'm very big on bankroll management. And even though I've had a really two good days, I think that if we go back to Monday night, I ran 69 builds, #nice. And then last night I ran 75 builds. I'm doing it again tonight, going 75 builds, even though kind of on a heater, could, heat check. But I'm just staying in my lane, learning, getting better, and bankroll. Just if you get rolled one night, and if it's affecting you, that limit's probably outside of your bankroll, management, and the rules around that. And so, I'm also just trying to show that, is maxing optimal? Yes, it is. If you have an unlimited bankroll or a very, very good active bankroll, you should definitely try to max the contest. But if that's not the case, you can still use these same philosophies, principles, and strategies by running less builds. So that's kind of what I was trying to highlight by not maxing those contests.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are wondering, we're going to go over SaberSim for about the first 45 minutes. Once 4:45 hits, you'll have your usuals with Mangone and DC joining the broadcast. And then Jordan and I will head out. But first, I do want to mention, after looking at last night, AP, you had a great sim ROI. And we're going to go over all contest flashbacks, contest sims, and anything in between that SaberSim offers. And Jordan is here to help us. I just want to mention, it's not just for NBA. It's not just for NFL. They have it for NHL. They have it for League of Legends, believe it or not. They have it for CSGO. They literally have it for almost every sport, and they're continuing to add on and make this product way better. Jordan, how are you doing, man? And how's been the start of the NFL and NBA season for you?
It's fun. I'm excited to be back on the show here today. We've been working hard on our end. We've had, new releases, new features, new stuff going live every single week. It's been a huge year for us. Last year, maybe for some of the OGs, the late swap even – we didn't even have the pools for late swap. It was just swap every lineup once and hope you got a good one on the other side of it. And now we've got contest sims, 5,000 lineups for every sport. We've got the live data as of this week, which is something I really want to talk about. So we've just come a long way. It's a fun time of year. I'm excited to talk about it here.
Yes, and it's going to be a fun time. Obviously, this is the first 12-game slate of the year. It's a massive slate, and AP, anything about it. It's a tough one to get done. You're doing your heat map and stuff, multitasking, but
it's such a beast, man. I almost forgot, but it's a ton of fun. And again, and now you get new faces, new names, and you're checking rotations, and you're checking, what happened in preseason and everything. And so, yeah, it is a lot of fun. And I do got to say, so I love the contest flashback. I'm really big on learning what the best kind of in the world at this are doing. I've had to do that, manual. And again, I spent a week ago, I spent 2 days just diving in, looking at some of the sharpest NBA players. One of them is on our team, in JBC when it comes to multi-entering and looking at what they did throughout the year. You can learn a lot from that, and you can kind of adapt, and you can take some of the things that they do and apply it to yourself. If you're not doing that, I mean, you should be. And SaberSim makes it easy with the contest flashback. I haven't looked at what my sim ROI was.
It was impressive. It was very impressive, AP.
That's what I like to see.
I do want to mention, Jordan, so I believe when you guys ran through the update in our Discord, you mentioned that contest flashback. Is that free or now available to any subscription on SaberSim now?
Yeah, it is. So as of this week, everybody's got access to this, no matter what plan you're on. It can be a little tricky to find here, so it is tucked into the contest tab. And then normally what you'll see when you first pull this up is something that looks a little bit like this here. So down at the bottom under this all contests, you'll get a list of, and this is DraftKings only for now, virtually every contest that was in the lobby last night. And any of these that are showing in white here, you can click these, pull these up. You'll get the real lineups that were actually played. And probably the coolest part is you can go in here and see simulated metrics for how the slate worked out for everybody here. So you can see AP down here, the 75 lineups here, sim ROI at 80% here. I've been checking this. One of the things that I think is so cool about this is you don't need as much time to figure out if what you're doing is working, especially if it's a new sport or new season, or maybe you're trying a new strategy or something. You can go in, see how you grade it out over 100,000 samples of the slate that played the previous night and see what's working. So it can be a really useful feature here. If we want to take a closer look at what AP did on this slate, right, we can hit the magnifying glass here. It'll take a second to load, pull up his lineups. We can go ahead and see, player exposures and all kinds of different stuff. So really powerful stuff here. And it's now available to everyone.
Can you sort by so yeah, Sarge, it's funny. He was my highest owned, and yet at the end there, I was fading him. And that's where the risk sorted by risk adjusted, I think is really helped me out. The other thing too that I did is I got really aggressive on some of the stands that I wanted to take. I wanted to be very high on D Book. I thought I was actually higher on Jokic. I thought I was in line with the field, but it's just funny that because I was literally like, this guy's a lock. He's going to put up a monster score, but positions matter, pricing matters, opportunity matters. And there was a lot of different other builds out there that I thought were very plus EV that I wanted to work into the mix. And the allocation that I had to Jokic, I liked the mix of players that I had with them. So accomplished everything I wanted to. And obviously the end result was good. And I think I was pretty overweight Nurkic. I think he came in around like 23 or 22.
Yep, right
maybe
there.
a little less.
Yeah, so we can see it
23.
right there in the actual ownership. Yep, 23% in this contest. You had 33. So, yeah, really cool to come in here and just look at how different people played the slate, what the top sim ROIs look like. For Showdown, I've really been liking it because it'll quickly tell you how many times you were duplicated or how many unique lineups you played. It can be interesting to see too, like what did the most profitable players play in terms of were people trying to get away from dupes on that slate, or was it a slate where you had to embrace them a little bit? So all kinds of useful research you can do here. And part of the reason we made this available to everybody this week is because it's such a useful tool to level up and learn and research that we wanted this to be available to everybody so that you can see, whether you're on the ultimate or not, if your process is working and what you can do to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's huge too. I mean, anytime you want to review and become a better player, I know Big T talks about it all the time. He wants to see what he's doing right or what he's doing wrong. And it's a great way to test yourself. If you feel like you crushed a slate and it ended up not working, you can go in the next day and see what you did wrong. And the best part is we're only 14 hours removed from the slate or whatever. And we already have all this stuff up and available. This way for every sport. NFL, I know AP and we have been reviewing the contest flashbacks the last 2 weeks or so. And now that's available on any package with SaberSim, it's going to be a help to anyone. And tonight's 12-game slate, we'll get a chance to kind of see how this all works. And one thing that I do want to talk about a little bit later will be the late swap features that you guys have came out with. Huge update yesterday that also takes into account for how a player is actually performing and what their actual ownership in a contest is. I know a lot of people have questions about that. And I actually think maybe instead of waiting until later, let's talk about it now. These late swap features, I can almost compare it to the Monty Hall problem, right? We have such a great tool here at SaberSim. The Sims are so smart. When you see how something's actually performing, it almost feels like it would be to your benefit to almost always late swap, right?
I think so. And we were talking about that on our show yesterday. There is a time component where, maybe you're not going to be able to sit around and late swap every single game if there's no news that's breaking. But in terms of optimizing your process, maximizing EV, yeah, I think with the information that you are getting about how high are players owned, even for this 5:30 window here, my time here tonight, 30 minutes after the first game start, knowing the ownership of the players playing in these 8 games, even if nothing else changes about the slate, is a valuable part of how you should play that slate. And you might as well take advantage of that information. As of this week, we will pull in live ownership for a representative contest of each of these 13 buckets here. So obviously the flagship, the low stakes MME, for example, is tied to the mini max. We're basically pulling those in, the actual lineups played, adjusting the ownership of the players playing in the 8 teams here for the first 4 games, and then rebuilding the rest of the ownership around that. So, let's quick example here. Drew Holiday, we have right now projected about 24% owned. Let's say he only comes in 12% owned. Well, that's going to affect the rest of the slate. That's going to affect the way that other players are owned in the rest of the slate. So we'll rebuild the ownership with that knowledge now and swap lineups accordingly. So, it's pretty powerful, pretty useful. And I think playing optimally, you would want to swap every window.
Yeah, that's the best part too. And you can also contest sim. It gives you a lot of lineups to choose from a pool of lineups. You get, I think every lineup, I know just on the default setting, it was over 10 lineups per swap, basically, or 10 swaps per lineup. And it was a very efficient way to get it done. It was very quick, very easy. And I know that's what you guys are striving for, is to make this quick and easy for the user. And, these improvements are awesome. I know that when we kind of go into a slate like this, we can even fiddle around and make some teams right now. Jordan, does that sound good? Something that we can do?
Yeah, absolutely here.
Perfect. So let's just go on a hot take too, because I won't be on here after 4:45, so I can kind of give my takes. But you see, one of the number one thing that everyone's going to talk about is Obi Toppin's price. It's a complete misprice at 3K. He's going to be one of these chalkiest options. And what we can do here is we can see what the sims, because there's a difference between great chalk and bad chalk, right? Obi Toppin tonight, it's hard to get away from. I mean, there's just not a ton of value on the slate. There's a few misprices, but none like Obi Toppin. So when we bump him up and stuff, I'm curious to see how much we get, because it's just quite frankly hard to avoid. I know some of the best of the best, JBC has been mentioning, and AP, you've been reviewing his lineup and stuff. When I value this good, he'll have him 90+% almost, right? All right, well, the AP.
So I thought you were talking to Jordan. My bad. I'm sending a message. So the thing about NBA is again, I think it's a sport that really fits us really well, because it's a sport that is far easier to project. You have 5 guys on the court. You within a range, what their production's likely to be. We have a good idea of coaching tendencies, rotations, etc. It makes it far easier to project compared to NFL, where, it's I think the variance is significantly higher. Golf, same thing. And so, it's and then the other thing too is positional eligibility, and that stuff matters. You could have one thing that could potentially negate. And again, this might be a bad take because Obi Toppin's 3K, likely to start, can produce. But we have other power forward center options that are also really, really strong options on the slate. So positions matter, pricing matters, opportunity matters. It's something that we talk about a lot in the RPS Discord.
Yeah, and Jordan, you pulled up Obi Toppin's projection. What percentage of the sims have him landing in? So most of the time he is landing in that 25 to 28 range, it looks. And you see that there. It's hard to pass up at 3K.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where the play-by-play sims can be so valuable, is understanding how these outcomes look like for different sports. You pull up NFL chalk or baseball chalk or something like that, the guy that's going to be 30, 40% owned or something. It's not going to look like this graph. You can see here, we're expecting 60% owned, but the vast majority of outcomes are going to be really outperforming that 3K salary here. But it's still a complicated question to know, do you play him? Do you fade him? Does that change in different contests? And that's where the contest sims can be super valuable here. So we've got the build pulled up, basically ran 150, 5,000 lineup pool on the default settings. We can go ahead and get our contest sim configured here. And pull this up. And I know you guys have probably been hammering this stuff pretty hard on some of the other shows, but A couple things that are really new in the contest sims. One of my favorites, even if you don't have a contest file uploaded, you can now just pull in the payout structure for a given contest that's in the lobby that night here. So if you want to play around, one of I think the coolest things to do when you're first getting familiar with the contest sims is load up 3 or 4 of these and see how does the ROIs of lineups change when you're talking about a high stakes single entry contest, or if you're talking about the mini max, or if you're talking about the flagship, or, for NFL, the milli makers end up being really interesting because the prize to first is, sometimes 40% of the prize pool. Seeing how that ROI changes, seeing how chalk changes, right? There's a lot of different variables that are changing here contest to contest, not only the payout structure, but also the field lineups, right? Obi Toppin might be 80% in high stakes single entry tonight, might be 45% in low stakes MME kind of stuff. So really, really interesting there to look at the differences.
Yeah, and obviously you can load up to 10 contest sims at one time, right? Is that still part of the feature? So I do that all the time. One thing that we do is that we do it by the main flagship MME, which for NFL, it's usually that $15 or $20 prize point. And then the $4, 20 max, $3, 20 max, and then like a single entry. And tonight for NBA, we have the 888 contest, right? That mega premiere, which I know that they ran a promo for. I'm fortunate enough to have a couple entries and stuff. AP, I hope you're in there with me, man. It would be fun to, get a three-peat that way with the 888 this time. But we can see for NHL, when I use the contest sims, I see a lot of difference between when we had the Spinorama last week and then compared to just the main flagship MME, because you're dealing with a much smaller field. For the 888 tonight, it's 1251 entries. That's it. And then for the main flagship GPP, it's like almost 20,000 more, 40 to 30,000 more, or whatever. It's just a ton. And the way you approach those slates should be different. Even though I'm always like to run one lineup across the board, single entries, 20 max stuff, but you guys do it way more efficiently. And the contest sims allow you to see these really efficient lineups easy. And when we make adjustments, I know AP, when you mentioned this earlier, is that you can be aggressive with your own projections and see it actually displayed on these ROI where, the changes that you made is reflected, but it's still building really efficient lineups around those adjustments.
Go ahead.
Real quick, Jordan, what's your thought? Like, Jordan, my style. Like, we did a lot of shows together, and you know how aggressive I like to get, especially with players that I just think are in great spots. Like tonight, it's a lot like if you go over to the heat map, everyone in bright green, I'm getting very aggressive with the projection. I'm still running 5,000. I'm incorporating the contest sims. I'm looking at the largest contest, whatever the flagship one is. And then I'm sorting by risk adjusted. And then I'm making some additional, like I manipulate it a little bit more, but that's a lot of my process right there. What's your thoughts on that as far as like getting aggressive with projections?
Yeah, and I think that's still a great way to get an edge, right? Is finding those opportunities where the field is missing something in a certain game, or a guy is just under projected, and making those adjustments. The nice thing is that it works. It plays very nicely with the sims, right? When you're using a custom projection, we're making it change to the way that our play-by-play simulations look for that game to account for that. So if you like a player 10 points higher projected than our mean, well, we're not just bumping that up or artificially giving you more exposure. When that actually runs through the contest sims, you're getting simulations of that game that match up with the way that you see the slate. So I think it's really valuable. I will call out very new as of today here, and something, AP, I think that you'll really like. Small change from how this looked last night, but this toggle here is now available in the contest sim. Use live sims if available. And when toggled on, what that's going to do is that's going to say, for your contest sim, any game that is in progress, use the SaberSim live sims for simulating out that game in the contest sim. For all the other games that haven't started yet, use your custom projections like normal. I think yesterday you kind of had to decide, do I want to use the SaberSim live sims or do I want to use my custom projections? And if you chose one, you lost the value of the other. As of today, you can really combine them into both. And this little tooltip explains the same thing here. It's basically saying, we'll simulate the games that are in progress using the SaberSim Live. We'll use your custom projections for the games that haven't started. So we released the live stuff earlier this week. The number one thing I heard all week was, how do I use my custom projections? It's here now. It's available as this toggle here.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And that's actually a really cool feature. Anyone who wants the late swap, it's one of the best edges in DFS is getting these late games stacked across the board and making pivots based on what's happening in the actual sims, right? It's awesome to see this play out. And again, if you guys are looking for the play-by-play, game-by-game breakdown, we have Mangone, we have DraftCheat. They'll be joining us in about 20 minutes. and we will go over game by game. Right now, we are going over SaberSim, and we also have these contest sims done. And the first thing that I see off the rip is that we get 80% OB Toppin, which kind of falls in line. And for a flagship MME, you might think, oh man, I would just lock him or whatever. He's not going to be 100% owned, and you're still getting above the field, and you're almost double the field based on the adjusted ownership projections at around 46% or whatever. And you're getting a ton of the good chalk up there. Mobley's good chalk with Jared Allen out. Obi Toppin's good chalk. Jaren Jackson Jr., I know Bobby Hare, our guy who does that early core on Twitter and stuff. He had Jaren Jackson Jr. in there. You have a lot of really good plays up top. And this is where, getting these uniques adjusted across the board can be really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I always like, I think it's pretty normal to see these really well projected, especially a player sitting out on an island at 9x their average projection or the salary. I think a lot of times this is what you expect with a contest sim. This is a lot of times what we saw even last year without the contest sims for the chalk here. But it isn't 100%, right? There's still a little bit of a balance there. We're not all in on this play. I've noticed using the contest sims that it actually tends to diversify you a little bit more than SaberScore used to. It's nice to see, still 12-game NBA slate here. A lot of options we can go to. It's nice to see some natural diversity in our pool here, and we're not all in on any given play, even though we're getting a lot of exposure here. We bounce over to the lineups too. You're seeing a nice balance of ownership here. You're getting some lower owned plays here. You're typically not going to see all of the chalk get jammed in. You're going to see balanced lineups around the lineups with Obi Toppin here. And on the lineups that don't have him, it allows you to probably play a little more chalky in the rest of the lineup. Not to say that every player has to be over 10% owned or something like that, but the contest sim will pick up on these dynamics that I think you kind of have to try to use your intuition to figure out yourself without them. So it can just be a really nice shortcut there.
So just to add on, keep that build up real quick, where you're not looking at Obi Toppin. So one thing too is and I love what it's doing here. Yeah, is if you're playing single entry or 3 max, which is typically what I would do. Would I just lock them in? Yeah, I would. But if you're running 75 or 150, look at the builds and just look at one thing you can do with the heat map is look at where all the, what I feel are the elite plays. It's probably going to line with this early on, going to line kind of where the industry's at too. There's a lot of value, a lot of good plays at the power forward center position. Mm-hmm. And if you just think about it, if Obi Toppin gets you 24 in a single entry in 3 max format, you're going to like that. But if Jaren Jackson, Evan Mobley, if they absolutely crush, and then if you get a guy like Vucevic, who's 6'9", if he crushes, Walker Kessler's 5'6", if he crushes, there's going to be other builds that work in the mix, especially since we have Sohan at 4.7K. You can play him at the point guard and small forward position. Horton Tucker as well. You have Tyus Jones too, 4'9". So there's value in the guard positions as well that could kind of potentially trump that play. And I'm talking optimal. It's I don't want to talk anyone off of Obi Toppin. I'm just talking about naturally what, sorting by risk adjusted does for you. And that's one thing that I absolutely love. And you can just see it right there. If you click him out, and so this is bringing up all the builds without Obi Toppin, just all the players I just named. Well, a lot of them, Jaren Jackson, Evan Mobley, Şengün, another one. Mm-hmm. He's crushed preseason. Ruby, I know he's one of your guys. I think I have him in there as elite tournament play, 6.7K. So it's going to just bring you to a different type of build, roster construction. So absolutely like what it's doing there.
Yeah, and Jordan, when you mentioned that, we can build out our own projections and stuff, and it still goes into a factor of the Sims, right? Mm-hmm. I could be very high on Şengün because, in previous years, I always thought, Silas was the coach. He would always limit his minutes a bit, and it was frustrating as a Şengün guy. But now when you're backing in, maybe you can anticipate more minutes, and I can feel oh, man, maybe I think across the industry he's being underprojected. I'm going to bump him up a couple points because he is basically Jokic light. He's one of my favorite guys in the league. He's a triple-double guy who can always get there, get a triple-double at any time. And if I bump up Şengün to 41, 42, more on my reflection, that's 3-4 points up. That gets factored into the Sims. It's not just we run our own thing. No matter what changes you make, it doesn't really matter. No, it matters, and that's why RPS has such a good fit with y'all. And SaberSim, you guys do a great job. Is that you see Big T, JSU, AP, these guys just crushing. You have Bryce too, Mangone, guys who are just honestly just shipping once a week. It feels, and a large part of that is due to these contest sims, due to SaberSim just in general, and just really being dialed in. And I'm so happy, like, you know, every update that you guys have made, it's just been so effective. But like any takes that you have, you know, it's not just machine learning. It's not just like, oh, you're just relying on sims. No, your takes matter too, and what you put in can really help you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's something that Matt on our team feels really strongly about too. I think there's this kind of false dichotomy, like you're either sims or a brain player, and it's not really the case, right? Like you can absolutely leave your mark on this, put your stands in here, apply your research, and then just see how the sims then kind of grade things out. On that note, I do just want to address, because it's a question I see come up from time to time, when you should be rerunning that contest sim as you're going through the process of making your build here. So the ROI metrics and everything that comes through when we run the contest sim is really kind of a snapshot in time from when you first hit the button. So even though I've bumped up Sengun here now to 42, these numbers for the lineups are still just what they were at the time we ran the contest sim after the build. So in its simplest way here, anytime you're making a change to a projection or after you've gone through the process of making all of your changes to projections, that would be the right time to go ahead here, rerun that contest sim. And now we're saying, okay, SaberSim, take those same 5,000 lineups, but now tell me what you like the most here when Sengun's projected at 42 or all of the other projections and things like that. If you're playing around with exposures or locking players in or Xing them out or anything like that, you don't actually need to rerun the contest sim just for that, because what you're doing there is you're picking what 150 to play out of your 5,000. So it doesn't really just saying I want to lock in Obi Toppin or I want to make sure I get 40% of this player. It doesn't change the contest sim metrics. Changing the projections does. So just kind of a practical thing there I've noticed comes up from time to time on when people should be rerunning.
That's perfect, because I'm glad that I've been doing it right then, because when I adjust projections, I rerun it, and when I'm just trying to get min maxes, I don't rerun it. So that's key there to know for the future.
I mean, Rubio, you taught me that on Monday, and,
yes.
and I mean, look what happened ever since. And you know me, I make a ton of adjustments even after I've sorted that. So that was awesome learning that.
Yeah, it's not just one roll through and everybody knows the rules or whatever. No, I run it like 5, 6, 7 times. Like even for soccer, when I'm just building out my lineups and stuff for Champions League, I just keep running it over and over again until I get what I want. And the speed that you guys have sped up these sims too, especially for NFL, it's helped out a lot. And it took 10 minutes last week or whatever. It takes like 4 minutes now, and you get everything that you want, including the contest sim. So it's nice. And AP. We can talk a little bit just about these games, give people a little bit of what they want. I know that we can talk about it through Saber. Let's go ahead. I know you have the heat map up. Give a couple players from the heat map we can bump up, a team that you dislike, and then we can run the contest sims once more and kind of just see where that takes us before Mangone and DC jump on.
Yeah, let's do this, because like all the love is going to Obi Toppin, but let's give Tyus Jones some love. Like I think this team is going to play with some good pace. Obviously, you have two ball hogs in Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is priced way up, but like Tyus Jones, a really good point guard. We saw that when John Morant was out often. Over the years, Tyus would step in. He could facilitate an offense. He's 4.9K. In like preseason is what it is. But when you get a vet like that, I love seeing how they interact with the team. The peripherals were there. I mean, he looked good. I think 4.9K is too cheap. I didn't even see what was the base. Yeah, I like that. 3 to 5 points higher. That's pretty aggressive there. Shingun, let's keep him bumped up. And then what about Sohan? Another one. I want it since we're like so focused on Obi Toppin and again, really, really strong play. I want to see what happens when these other values at other positions, the guard positions, that's just going to bring in a completely different, roster construction. What happens when they smash? What do our builds look like? So Sohan, which actually he's interesting because you can play him at the point guard, small forward position, or guard forward utility, which makes him very flexible, which I see a lot of value in that. Same with like Talon Horton-Tucker too. So there's value all over the board. What that will do is probably likely bring in some studs like Luka. I mean, what do you think Luka's ownership is going to be? It's got to be somewhat high with all the value that we have. And he's obviously a good play. But
I think people are scared of the injury. I think the fact that he hasn't been rolled in yet, just the more it rolls on, the more it ticks on, the more
he was practicing today. I saw those highlights.
And the shoot around, right? But he hasn't been rolled in. He's still questionable, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be like a Devin Booker situation. And how Devin Booker do last night? I mean, he was incredible.
You would know.
It's his team.
21K with it. No.
Yeah, no, it's definitely his team. I mean, D Book looks like I get Kobe vibes, watching him play right now. So no disrespect to Kobe, not at all. It's more of Devin Booker's just taking his game to that next level.
100%. So when we rerun it too, I mean, the biggest things that you guys can see, if you guys are wondering what some of these numbers mean, we're running it into the $20 or 20 max here. You see a sim ROI, you get 766.8%. The risk adjusted is kind of gives you that broader range, right? That more diversification when you see it. And this one right here at the top is over 2,100%. That's just a leap for what we have bumped up, because the more you bump up, the more it's going to appear for you, right? I could project guys for 99 and they would have no chance to hit it. My RAROI would be through the roof, but it still has to be realistic. It is realistic to what we're kind of making these takes on. And you see a huge number like this, you're like, how can it lose? But it does look nice. And like you said, AP, it brings in Luka into play. It gives our chalk options in Levine, who's underpriced. You get guys here, and Sengun's your low-end piece. A lot of times in NBA, you only need one guy under 5%. And Sengun is acting as that piece and allows you to get really chalk across the board. And that's what is giving us this high RAROI, right, Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point, right? I mean, even without making adjustments to projections, you can see some pretty big ROI numbers here showing up. And we had some discussions on our end of obviously this isn't a realistic ROI at 840%, or even if we took away the custom projections and it comes in at 300% or something like that. That's not the true ROI of the measurement. What it's doing is it's saying in the SaberSim play-by-play sims, this is what we believe these lineups ROI is against the actual field, right? And our simulator believes that our sims have an edge, but it's not that big. So it's important to kind of qualify that and understand here that, yeah, these are probably profitable lineups here, but the number is inflated, and even more so now because we're assuming that, if we're saying the field's going to have Sengun 1% of the time and we've given him this kind of projection, then yeah, you might have that kind of ROI against that field, but there's just a lot of variance and noise there. So important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
In that, those type of plays on this slate are going to go under owned because everyone's going to be jamming in Obi Toppin, Mobley, and Jaren Jackson. So if you just think about that, you have power forward, centered forward, and then a utility spot that's open, but you have so many good plays at that guard position too. It's going to leave Walker Kessler, Sengun, those type of plays that are kind of in, there's risk. There's definitely risk there, but if Sengun gets us a 50 piece, which he's definitely capable of, you're going to be immediately different. It's going to take you down a different path. Same with Walker Kessler too, in what I think is a good matchup against Sabonis. So there are so many different builds tonight that look really attractive. Where in MME you can get a nice edge. Tougher to do in single entry 3 max formats, but I like how that build looks right now. There is risk there, like Jaren Jackson Jr., foul risk. Sengun, foul risk. Those two, foul like crazy, but they both have an insane amount of upside on this slate.
Yeah, and you already have people in the chat. Zion will give Jackson foul trouble real quick and stuff, and that's part. That's great, right? That's part of what makes SaberSim great is that we can go in here. You can bump Jaren Jackson Jr. down, and it's not going to, affect all your other teams or whatever, right? It's going to affect him. It's going to affect his sim. He might still pop up in your lineups because he's a guy with high stock upside, right? He gets a lot of blocks, a lot of steals. You don't want to completely fade him, but if you do think he's going to get in foul trouble, we're just bumping him down. It's good, right? We have plenty of options in the mid 6K range to get this done. And you see him right here. Mobley's one of my favorite guys tonight. Without Jared Allen, 6,300 is super cheap. You have plenty of pivots around the board. And, you see a guy like Scoot Henderson there. I love that at 30% ownership, just exposure-wise. And we talk about these uniques and stuff. When you bump up the uniques, you don't need to rerun the sims or whatever. I think you had a good rule of thumb, Jordan, is that wherever it doesn't allow you to build 150 lineups, just go one less from that, basically. So if it's not producing 150 lineups at 6, if it's not doing it at 5, then we would go to 3. So we would use 3 uniques on this.
Yeah,
it doesn't build 150 for 4 uniques, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So we get 150 here for 4, and then I like to go one less than that. And that's a heuristic. That's a baseline. I like to use it as a starting point. Some slates I'll go a little bit lower than that there on the uniques. The reason I like this is because it gives you a really good balance of not extending too deep into your pool here, right? We are bottom lineup, say 500-ish or something like that out of 5,000. So we're still playing top elite lineups. You can see the ROIs here, right? These lineups at the bottom are still going to be profitable lineups, but we're now playing lineups that are different from one another. So we're not as all in on some of these top plays. You can see our exposures have come down a little bit here as well. Still some great leverage opportunities, but a nice balance, a nice mix there. And again, I think that's the starting point. You can come down here if on a night you are more confident about your top plays. Maybe you're bringing this down a little bit lower. On a night you're less confident about those plays, you can keep it up in the higher range. But it's also very interesting in NBA, right? The threshold where you meet this is a lot lower. We're at 3 uniques here in a pool of 5,000 lineups with 150 in our set on a 12-game slate. I think playing baseball all summer, I had this cranked up to like 5 or 6 a lot of nights just because the variance is so much higher. You don't really want to be too overexposed to any given play. In NBA, you could go into a slate very comfortable 80, 90% on your top plays. So.
And that's a good point too. I know that JBC kind of harps on it too, or, when we talk about showdown, it's either 1 unique or 2 uniques and stuff. But when the value is this obvious with a guy like Obi Toppin, you have clear values in the mid-range too. He might even stress that you go a little bit lower on the uniques, right? So, we have so many misprices on DK that we want to get those misprices, and then hopefully we can get diverse in other places because we still want to get overweight on these plays is the argument. And I know, people will be like, oh, why would I only want 4% of a dude? If I'm running 20 lineups, why would I only want 2 lineups? Well, I've done really well in college football, and there's so many times where I only have a dude in 2 or 3 lineups, and that lineup ends up crushing, or that stack ends up crushing, and you don't want to just eliminate yourself from that, right? You want to keep it open because you can be really chalk, or you can be really condensed across the board, and these uniques allow you to get a little bit different and help you, win it all. And if you guys are still looking for the game-by-game breakdown, that's going to happen in just under 10 minutes. We'll have Mangone and DC coming in. Jordan, anything else that you would like to add before we go to AP, and then we'll get out of here before DC and Mangone join?
Yeah, I do just want to quickly touch on the live stuff one more time because it's really useful once a slate has started, and it's really cool. But we can't see it for the slate tonight that hasn't started yet. But basically, as soon as the slate locks here, 5 minutes into the first few games, will pull in the actual ownerships from those different contests in the lobby here. So, for example, tonight, right, we're talking about Sengun right out of the gate playing in the first game here. We've got him, for this 888, for example, projected very low, almost unknown in this contest. But we'll go check as soon as the slate actually locks and see what's the ownership there, right? Maybe he comes in at 8% owned or something like that. And then rebuild the rest of the ownership around that, and your swaps and your contest sims are now all using that actual ownership here. So you'll see it here from last night, for example. We can go in and see what was the live ownership for these different contests here, compare them to the projected ownership and see how right or wrong we were on those. And also the live projection. So it's pretty fun just to sweat the games and watch the games here as the slate's going on and see what your live projections look like when the guy that you're, 3x the field on is already at his average projection in halftime or something like that. You can see, okay, what's now the live projection? What is my expectation for my lineups here now? So I do want to call that out just as something kind of cool to not only use in your late swaps and your contest sims, but just as a way to sweat the games and watch the games. Watching those live projections is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is all available through the Ultimate package, not just the contest flashbacks, because that is included in any package at SaberSim. But now in the Ultimate package, you get access to these contest sims, these late swap features, running with contest sims, and also, these live, ownership, these live performances, projection-wise and all that. It's all included with, SaberSim. It does a great job through and through. AP, tell me a little bit, just before DC and Mangone jump in on, what have you seen your success on these last 2 days? You've just been absolutely, on one. You've been 45K in 2 days and stuff. We run the Saber Show Monday and Thursdays for, those night football games, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. What's your tip, to mastering the SaberSim?
So a couple different things. The Monday night one, and we talked about this on the show. Yeah, I was on the Vikings. I ran a Vikings heavy script, but part of it was pricing and, just talking to a lot of people out there. one thing that people like to do is like X out 5-1s. And if you would have done that, you would have prevented yourself from getting that optimal. And I was like, if you go back to mine, I was heavy 5-1s. And I thought about like reducing that down. But again, I wasn't maxing it. I was, I ran under 70 builds, and I needed to be aggressive. And when I looked at it, I'm like, you know what, this makes sense because we have no Justin Jefferson. So all of these guys are just priced in kind of like underpriced because we don't know how it's going to play out with no Justin Jefferson. And obviously Kirk Cousins had a really great game. So my point there is just trust it. Like put your spin on it, but then trust what the numbers say, stick to the process, have good bankroll management strategies, and you're going to be putting yourself in a good spot. So, I mean, it's kind of proven now. Like Rubio, you've had a ton of success. I mean, Big T, JSU, I mean, we could go all the way down the list, a bunch of members as well. So that's what we love to see. And I love that we're hitting the stride right now, headed right into NBA season. Just feel absolutely locked in. And tonight's slate should be a fun one.
Yeah, there's no better time to get in on the action too. We have a promo code if you haven't been a member of RPS before, NBA 15% off your first payment. We also had Dr. Spoony. He also won, 21K last night as well. So he was part of that train there. Congratulations, man. Good to see. And AP, you obviously got to split with him too. It's nice. And we do get one of the other two guys who are joining onto the show here. Jordan, thank you so much for joining on, man. I greatly appreciate everything. And you guys aren't on SaberSim right now. We'll see you. We'll see you in the rearview mirrors because right now it's just absolutely insane. Everything that you guys are doing, the improvements are above and beyond, not just for NBA, but for NFL and every single sport that you guys offer is just absurd. And thank you for joining us, Jordan.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Real quick, and then I'll get out of here. I will just mention our support team is in that SaberSim channel in the RPS Discord every day. Answering questions, helping people out. I know things can be a little confusing the first time you see it. You can always tag us just at SaberSim in that channel. We'll be happy to help out and answer questions there. So,
all right, good stuff, guys. This transition is brought to you by Snyder Soldiers, baby. Oh, I love that graphic. All right, let's get you guys in here. What's going on, guys?
Good to be here. Good to be here with Snyder Soldiers as well. DC, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, yeah. We got the early graphic up. I'm sure it won't be the last time we see Snyder's Soldiers. Always a classic, so yeah, good stuff.
Yep, always a classic. Love the Snyder Soldiers graphic. We'll definitely be throwing that in there throughout the show. And the good news is we got NBA back, right? I mean, I don't consider yesterday as the NBA back. I guess I said to someone yesterday, I said if I win a bunch of money, I'll consider it. So AP, the NBA was back for you. It's back today for me. I love the bigger slates. I don't love 12 gamers, but 2 gamers. It's just not the same. But excited for tonight. Should be a really fun slate. AP obviously had a massive hit. If you didn't see, past 2 days back to back. He's going for the 3-peat tonight, seeing if he can take another one down. And AP, if you want, if you don't chip NBA, there's still League of Legends. If you really want to try and get in there to get that,
I love it.
Hit, so
I'm in. What time does that start though?
I think like 1 a.m. But
I'm out. I guess so. You know the lineups, right? It's not like NBA, right?
No,
like we have a good idea of who's playing. Okay,
yeah,
maybe I'm in. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, whenever you keep winning, the heat check has to happen. I know you said you still sticking to the process, playing 75 like you did last night, which I think is perfectly fine. But I am excited for tonight. Lots of games to talk about. Let's dive in, because if we don't dive in soon, we got 12 games to talk about. It's going to be a lot to go to. Actually, before we do dive in, DC, how was the hike? I should ask you about that. Did you do a 12-mile hike today? Is that correct?
Yeah, half running, half hiking. Hike the uphills, run the downhills and the flats with the dog. We've been out there, like 4 or 5 times a week. Keep increasing it, like 1 more mile every time out. And the dog shows no signs of fatigue or slowing down. I posted that video. She's ripping the trail 11 miles in. So I'm a little tired. Mangone, you went with us once. At that point, she was like, I don't know. She was still ahead of us at the end of the hike. When we first started, she couldn't keep up with me. But now I'm the guy sore afterwards. So fun times. A little bit tired, but got a Red Bull ready to go for NBA.
Yep, ready to rock. AP, I'll go over to you now. Let's get a nice little slate overview from you, because I've heard you talk about on the SaberSim show before. You kind of gave a little bit of an overview on some stuff and some of the chalk. And I want to hear what you got to say because the people, I think they need to hear it. Like you talk about Jaren Jackson Jr., Obi Toppin. There's some good chalk pieces. How we handle it. Give me like your kind of slate overview.
Yeah, I mean, first it was funny. I saw our guy DC's tweet right as I was eating my 2 Chick-fil-A spicy sandwiches. So it made me feel really good about myself. My little victory lunch there. Two spicy chicken sandwiches. They went down very, very nicely. So it was funny, the timing of that, though. I'm like, oh, man, now I need to go, like, ride a bike or something. So, yeah, this slate, again, it's, we're back. NBA is fully back today, 12-game slate. These slates are massive. Like, my one advice is just keep it simple. We have, it's all about identify, mispriced players, find the guys that are mispriced, that have opportunity, and just simplify the slate. Like there are spots depending on what you're trying to do, you don't need to get too cute on if you're playing single entry, 3 max, or a tournament, and just try to find different ways to get a little bit different. Mangone, like both of you, I think you both do a really good job at that as well. And so if you have a strong take on someone, maybe it's like Ben Simmons, you liked what you saw him doing during preseason. Like, the guy used to be a triple-double threat. Can he still do it? He's 5.9K. You can play him at many different positions. So those are the type of things to be doing. But again, it sets up to be an interesting and chalky slate. Like we have, a 3K value in Obi Toppin that's going to start, and he grades out to be a really good play. But positions do matter, as Mangone talks about all the time, and we have a lot of strong plays at the power forward position. Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson. So I think it sets up to be a really fun slate. I'm excited to, again, dive in with SaberSim, test out some of their late swap features and their new late swap features. And that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. So excited to break it down with you guys.
Yep, I'm excited to dive in and really check out the SaberSim stuff even more. Watched the show before and definitely learned some things. So can you keep making sure to do that? Let's dive in though and talk about these games. Let's see the order. We'll go from DK. So we'll start with a game that I think is, man, if you pull up SaberSim, right, and you get all the ownerships and stuff, you're going to see a lot of ownership here on this game. I think there's a lot of plays that people want to gravitate towards. It's Washington Wizards and the Indiana Pacers. I think for one, Tyus Jones is like one of the chalkier point guards on this slate. I think a lot of chalk is condensing at the center and forward position. I think guards, there's a lot of different ways that you can go. But if you want a cheap guard, then you're likely just saying, okay, Tyus Jones feels like the option to kind of gravitate towards. And for good reason. We always played him as a starter when he was dirt cheap. It just makes a lot of sense to like Tyus Jones in this spot. You do have Jordan Poole, who's seen a pretty high usage rate. Kyle Kuzma, who's dealing with a calf contusion. I know it's already the first game of the season, but we already got injuries to talk about here. He's going to play it, but who knows if that limits him a little bit, right? And that is a lot of usage to go around. Then also you have on the Indiana side, you got Miles Turner, who I think is a really good center option play against the Wizards. We always like to play centers against the Wizards. This team hasn't gotten really better. Maybe they've gotten better, maybe they've gotten worse, but they still suck. And then I think Tyrese Halliburton, we saw his usage throughout the year just increase, and him get better and better with the Indiana Pacers. I think he's a really good contrarian spend that you can go to in this spot. And then you got Obi Toppin, right? The cheap value forward that's going to play a pile of minutes. And I'm sure there'll be someone trying to tilt in the chat, but don't you dare tilt in the Discord chat on day one, okay? It's Obi Toppin 3K chalk. So, DC, I see you laughing over there. This is a game we have to like. I mentioned a bunch of plays. How do you want to handle this one?
Well, I'll just say this. If Obi Toppin busts in that first shift, that first 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, people will be tilting. There's no question about that because he's going to be what? I mean, single entry, 60, 70% owned. Obi Toppin, I think, is fair, maybe down around 50% in the $15 flagship, something like that. But, yeah, he'll be the highest owned player on the slate. I mean, rightfully so. He's 3K. He's a fantasy point per minute player, or at least he was on the Knicks. And on this roster, I'd expect him to be right around there anyway. So, yeah, I do think he's the best point per dollar play on the slate. Just know he will be chalky. I'm with you. I think Miles Turner is a really strong play. I definitely think you can play him with Obi Toppin, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes power forward, center, they're kind of competing for minutes. That's, I think, a little bit true here, but they're both so cheap, especially Toppin, that I think you can easily play them together. And then Halliburton would be the third guy that I would consider from Indiana. 12-game slate. I don't think I'm going further than 3 on any given team. Maybe Memphis could be a possible exception, but 3 would be the max for Indiana. I'd rank them Toppin 1, Turner 2, Halliburton, kind of a distant 3rd, honestly, for Indiana. And then, the Wizards, Tyus Jones, 4.9K, seems very, very safe, right? Maybe not the highest ceiling in the world, but a really, really good bet for 20+ fantasy points, a good shot at 30. And, I think he's fine. Kuzma, I think, is fine. And then Jordan Poole, I think he had like a 35% usage rate in the preseason. He's going to chuck on this team. There's just no question about it now, right? His efficiency and all that stuff, like everything else, I think is kind of up for debate with Poole, but I do think his ceiling is enormously high. Did he have a 40-point game in the preseason? I think that's pretty much unheard of. So, I think Poole is Poole and Tyus Jones, really that backcourt for Washington, kind of where I'm looking at here.
It's a very high ceiling for Jordan Poole, but the real question is, are there baddies in Indiana? That's the question. So we gotta understand that. We can ask our guy Bryce.
Preseason baddies, you gotta love it.
Yeah. So
what do we got in Indiana to answer the question?
Bryce, we got 3rd-inch long, so we gotta ask him, are there baddies in Indiana or not? So that's the question. We'll have to ask. Couple people in chat. We got Bayou Bengal Fantasy Networks. There's 500 watching, 82 likes. Hit the like button. We appreciate if you hit the like button, guys. I don't want to say it all show. We got 12 games to get through. I talk a lot, so I'm going to take up a ton of time talking because I'm annoying like that. But you got to hit the like so I don't have to keep saying it to you over and over. One last thing I wanted to get to in the chat was Kevin said, just hit the lock button on top and he looked good in preseason. I can't because I use that philosophy with Darren Waller, and now I'm broke because I was told Darren Waller was supposed to be the best player in the world after all the targets he got from Daniel Jones. So I don't know if you hit the lock button on Obi Toppin, but he's one of the best values on the slate. AP talked about that on the SaberSim show and at the top of the show. But AP, I want to go over to you since you just had a nice MME hit. There's obviously some really good plays in this game. So how do you handle the chalk? And are there any contrarian plays, like maybe a Bruce Brown, that you can add into the mix that could be really good options in this game?
Yeah, so one thing, I mean, the pace is projected to be really nice here. Like this Wizards team is one that you'll see. Like I posted a bet yesterday at like 233 is where the number was at. The model I do with another buddy that we've bet NBA for a long time, we got this number at like 238.5. And so I still think there's value in the over here. But I say that with caution because this team's going to be tilting too. You got Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. They don't play defense, but they're buckets too. They can absolutely score. So I do have a lot of concerns about this team, but a matchup against Indiana, they should be running up and down the court. And with average shooting, it should profile as being a really nice game. And I'm looking at more so, on the Wizards side, it's Tyus Jones. We talked about it earlier on the Saber show. This is a guy he's a starting point guard in the league. And we said that when he was with Memphis and when he would take over for John Morant, the guy would just come in and he can facilitate an offense. He did it in the preseason very nicely, racked up rebounds, assists, steals, had a couple blocks too. And he can score also. He can score from anywhere on the court. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, it's going to be interesting watching them. Like, am I fading Jordan Poole in tournaments? No. But am I going to be extremely overweight on him? No. Like, I'm content getting just a little bit of him in case he does go off, in case this game is back and forth. Because if he does that, we know the type of upside that he has. And then on the other side too, like Halliburton, I think the studs, there's so many good plays in the mid range and in the value range. It's going to be interesting to see where everyone lands on as far as studs. I like Halliburton here. The guy can distribute, he can score, he can do it all. The game environment's going to be really good. He's obviously a natural pairing there, or you could play him and Tyus, take up your point guard positions. As far as Bruce Brown, I'm going to wait on that. I think we just have better plays at the small forward position. So I'm going to be moving on from there. And then it's Obi Toppin. I think you, like we said when we started, keep it simple, move on. Obi Toppin, Halliburton, Tyus Jones are the ones I'm looking at here.
All right, good stuff there, AP. I think, again, great game that you're going to want to get to. You're obviously, if you want, there's little contrarian things you do. Like if you think Obi Toppin's a bad play and bad chalk, well, go into SaberSim and take the magnifying glass and just get him out of there just to see what teams look like. Don't take him out of the pool, but maybe I'll handpick a team that seems a little bit better. I think that's an interesting approach to go about it. Let's go over to the next games, though. Atlanta and Charlotte, another game that I think makes a lot of sense. I think this is a great spot for someone like Trae Young, who is, again, going to probably be lower owned here. Charlotte, we know they're a very bad defensive team. Likely gets to go up against Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier, defense sucks. LaMelo Ball, I'm not scared of him either. I think overall, these guys can really have a good game. You could make a case for DeJounte Murray, of course. I think this could be a really good spot for him. And this Hawks team, you could argue they're losing they're the same team, except they just lost John Collins, right? So just imagine John Collins is out, and it's basically the same Atlanta team. So we kind of know what we're getting with here against the Charlotte Hornets. And then Charlotte, they are a little bit different this year. Obviously, LaMelo Ball, he's now in the lineup and healthy for now. We'll see how long that actually lasts. He's obviously sometimes in and out of the lineup. The center position, it seems like it's going to be more established with Mark Williams and Nick Richards. Maybe they'll go PJ Washington at the 5 at times. Gordon Hayward is actually healthy right now. And then we got Miller, who's the new rookie who's in there. So this team seems a little bit better. The question is, can they keep up with this Atlanta Hawks team, DC? What are you going to do with this game?
Yeah, big total here, sitting at 236 between these two. So I do think a game that you want to target. So like you said, some moving pieces on these teams, but kind of the same core, right? They both teams getting the same backcourt back there, kind of the same big men as well. I don't know. I don't see anything in this game that is making it probably onto my core teams or my main teams. LaMelo Ball, I think, is the highest upside play in this game. He's expensive, right? 9,900, but we know what he can do when he's healthy. Like you said, we'll see how long that lasts. He was really aggressive in the preseason, kind of as he was last year. Loves to chuck, man. If you watch the Charlotte Hornets, he'll just shoot a three any chance he gets with just a tiny bit of an opening. So yeah, LaMelo Ball, I think, is my favorite play, but I still don't love that price tag for him with Rozier healthy, with Hayward healthy. And then on the Hawks side, yeah, I think there's a lot of reasonable plays here, right? Ball, Trae Young, I think even DeJounte Murray, AK is a reasonable play. But like I said, I don't see anything here right off the top that really jumps out to me. I'm seeing maybe some love for Mark Williams at 5,300. I think that's okay. I personally think there's better power forward / center options on the slate. You obviously just talked about Indiana. I'd take, Miles Turner for 600 more over Mark Williams. I feel better about that. Obviously top, and we'll talk about more guys. So I'm a little lukewarm on this game. I do think it's a reasonable game to game stack if you're trying to get different, right? Like a LaMelo Ball, Trae Young together. This game goes off for 240, 250, something like that. You could be looking at 60 plus for each. So I think that makes sense as a correlation play, but individually, not a ton that I'm in love with in this game.
Yeah, AP, I'll go over to you next. I mean, I think this is a game that, I like it a little bit, but I think it's a little more crowded than it was in the past. I think that's kind of worth mentioning. Also, I think some of these plays are a little bit better on FanDuel specifically, just because some of the price tags that we see. I just don't know if I can get super excited about this one on DraftKings. What's your thoughts, though? Because LaMelo Ball's expensive. Trae Young, he's pricey, but I think I like Trae Young over LaMelo if I had to pick one. And then I think there are cases to be made for some of these big man options, like a Mark Williams. I think he's still cheap enough at 5.3K where he could easily be on the tournament winner.
Yeah, pretty much aligned with DC there. I mean, the Hawks, this is a team, we know this rotation. They got a wide rotation. We know DeJounte Murray, Trae Young take usage away from each other. They're a nice backcourt. They really are. And this is a great matchup. But on a 12-game slate, I think we have better options. And then same with the wings, guys like Hunter, Bay. I mean, you got Bogdanovich, even like Jalen Johnson will come off the bench too. And one of them could go off, but do they have the ceiling on a massive slate to take down a tournament? I'm not really seeing it. And then Clint Capella, Nneka Okongwu is probably arguably a better player, a developing younger player that started really cutting into his minutes last year. I see that trend continuing. I see those guys basically splitting run. So, yeah, I think the Hawks are an easy fade. LaMelo Ball, we know the upside that he has. When he's out there, we have plenty of value on this slate. He should definitely be in your MME pool. And you can attack the Hawks at the power forward position. I think PJ Washington is fine. I can't go to Gordon Hayward. I just can't do it. And then Terry Rozier, another tough play with LaMelo Ball. He becomes really scoring dependent. He had a pretty bad year last year when I looked at it. He was a bust more often than not. And his price tag, like last year, was so often like high 6Ks. And so I always fell into that Terry Rozier trap.
I
Not going to do
way
it.
too much last year.
Oh, so much. And it's just like, nah, I'm not going to go there. So easy fade for me. And then, yeah, I could get on board with Mark Williams, but there is like value in just like keeping that spot open because we have some really nice center options like Walker Kessler is just a little bit more than him. Vucevic later on this slate. So I probably won't be getting to Mark Williams.
All right. Yeah. I mean, again, this game, it's one that I think will gain some ownership. I'm probably going to be lower on this game overall. Let's go over to the next one. It's Houston and Orlando. And I'll give a little sneak preview of the bet side. The bet side has been absolutely crushing it lately. If you are someone that likes to just make tons of bets, we got JVC posting those in there. If you're someone that's more of like, hey, give me like 3 to 5 bets a day, we got premium plays. And one of the premium plays here is the under on this game at 220. It's the Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets. So if you want to get that bet in there, that is one that JVC put in for today as a premium play. So figure to give that out for free for the people. But Houston and Orlando, I looked at this game, and of course, Houston is a totally revamped team. New coach, new players. It's one of those spots where you could argue it's going to be a little more crowded now. And how do we handle it? That's going to be a big debate. Van Vliet is 8'2". Şengün is 6'7", who will be likely low owned. Jalen Green, 6'2". And then you got the Orlando Magic. And, man, I saw Banchero's price, and I was like, listen, I get it. Paolo Banchero is fun. It's going to be a really good player for the Orlando Magic and help them take the next step. But 8.9K, I just can't do it in this spot for me. DC, I'll go over to you. Can you pay that price tag? And are you interested in any of these Rockets now that it's a little bit more crowded?
I think I'm taking a wait-and-see approach to the Rockets. I didn't honestly pay that much close attention to the NBA offseason, just caught up these last couple of days. Fred VanVleet on the Rockets seems very, very strange to me. Just with this roster and kind of a rebuilding team, when I look at who he's playing with, if you were guaranteed like the 40 minutes that he played every night for Toronto, I think this would be an interesting spot. But I just don't know, right? And just don't necessarily trust that. 12-game slate. He's not cheap. He's 8,200 on DraftKings. I'll wait and see there. Şengün is the guy on the Rockets that I think I kind of want to play. Don't mind the matchup for him. We kind of were waiting for him to get this, clear-cut starting role for a while now. Looks like he has it. And I think playing with like a real pro point guard, right, and Fred VanVleet instead of what they've had in the backcourt in the past could potentially benefit Şengün, who I think could be a pretty big focal point of this team. So 6,700 for him. Going back to the Mark Williams thing, I think I really like that kind of 6 to 7K range at center. Şengün definitely in the player pool for me there. Jabari Smith, another guy who I think could potentially have a breakout sophomore campaign here, looked pretty damn good as a rookie last year. And I will say, just in general, early season NBA, if you could pick out, which rookies, but even sophomore, third-year players that are going to take a big leap forward, and there will certainly be some, those guys are underpriced right now. I'm not necessarily saying Jabari Smith is going to be one of them, but there will be some who are going to go up 1 to 2K in pricing over the next week or two. And identifying those guys obviously is easier said than done, but there will be some of those guys. I think Jabari Smith is a candidate to do that. So yeah, I think the Rockets are interesting, and there'll be a team that I'll be watching closely to kind of see how they play and how they look. But in terms of fantasy for today, Şengün, kind of the guy that I'm focused in on. Orlando side, I don't see a lot to love. I'm with you, Mangone. I do expect a big season out of Banchero, but 8,900 is an expensive price tag to pay for a guy on this particular slate where there's so many options. They've got, looks like to me, a pretty deep bench, and I'm really not sure what the rotation is going to look like. So lower total, kind of question marks on both sides. I'll be mostly staying away from this game other than Şengün.
Yep, sounds like we agree on that there. One of our loyal listeners, Patrick Rice, he said Banchero is going to get locked up by my favorite player, Dylan Brooks. You settle down there, Patrick, or I'm going to put you in timeout. We don't talk about Dylan Brooks. He sucks. But AP, I don't know. Maybe you have Dylan Brooks.
I mean, it might be Franz Wagner, though. Like, is this Paulo's team or Franz's team? Like, Franz had an incredible offseason, obviously playing overseas. The dude has looked really incredible. I still don't think he's playable on a 12-game slate at all. Like, I don't think, like, maybe Suggs because of the 4.8K price tag, but still, are you playing Suggs over Tyus Jones? I don't think so. Like, I don't really want to, like, because this backcourt, you got Cole Anthony, you have Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz. They all work into the mix, and historically, we've seen kind of a hot hand approach with them. So I think the Magic, pretty easy fades here. I'm not going to play any of them. I like the under. I'm with JBC on that. I also think one bet that we got on early was the Magic win-overs. I'm high on this team. I think they get to 40-plus wins. I was telling Jaime, get excited, get some tickets, go to a few games, because I think this team's going to be competitive, and it's indicative with the spread. I also, all right, the Rockets, you got Ime Udoka in there now. Like, who's their old coach? Like Silas? Like this, like poor Steven Silas. He had to deal with an insane amount of egos with Kevin Porter Jr. and all these young guys. And I think Ime is going to set the tone, and he has some vets to do so. Like, I'm really curious, like Fred VanVleet, you got to think that Ime, very familiar with his game. He can probably rely on him as a leader, push him minutes-wise, and I think they want to set the tone early. So I think Fred VanVleet's an interesting tournament play. There's a lot of unknowns here. And again, if you're multi-entering, get a little bit of him. I think he could be interesting. Outside of that, like Dylan Brooks, easy fade. Sengun is the guy that I think in tournaments we should also be interested in. He was a beast in preseason, me referencing preseason. I literally just went and looked at box scores. It's not like I'm sitting there grinding, watching those games. So I think our guy Kurt was, though, because he did a lot of our preseason content. But again, with Sengun, he's Jokic light, right? I think that's what our guy Rubio calls him. He can get it done. The risk there is foul trouble, and that's always been his risk too. So keep in mind kind of the risk reward there. But you got to like this matchup for Sengun and Fred VanVleet in tournaments, not playing Dylan Brooks. And Jalen Green, I 6.2K. I think we have, I think I'd rather play Tyler Hero. You can play Schroeder, Levine. There's a lot of guys I have ranked ahead of him, but he is in the pool right now.
Yeah, and someone in the chat, they said they wanted some FanDuel love, right? So here's the FanDuel love. I'll try to touch on it each time we get there because I've ran some FanDuel stuff. For one, Markelle Fultz is cheap over there. I don't want to get – I think I'm going to lower his projection. I just don't want to be as overweight as I'm currently getting on Markelle Fultz right now. It just seems like a bit much. And Banchero is 7.5 over there. So a little bit of a better price tag. I will give you that. Maybe I'll get some Banchero exposure over there, but we got to keep this thing moving along. We're 3 games in. We're not going to be out of here probably by 45. Maybe we'll be a little bit over, but we'll have to see. This one could be a fast one to go through, though, because it's the Boston Celtics, it's the New York Knicks, and Boston is crowded. Listen, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm excited for this team this year. I think we're going to be watching them play very, very deep into the season this year, and this team is just crowded. I don't know what to do with it. Tatum is, 10-4. You got Brown at 8-3. Porzingis 7-2, which, yeah, sure. It feels like it could be a nice price tag on Porzingis, but not with the usage that's going around. And Drew Holiday is 6-1. And again, Drew Holiday, we used to pay $8K for him, but do I want to pay 6-1 in this situation? I'm not sure if I want to, especially on this slate. I think I want to take a wait-and-see approach more so. Then on the Knicks side of the ball, kind of similar situation here. We got Randall at 8-4, which that feels cheap for what he did last year. So you could make a case for that. But this does not feel like an ideal matchup. I think the Celtics kind of roll here. DC, I'll go to you. For me, I'm trying to stay pretty far away from this game. How about you?
Yeah, man, that Celtics starting lineup is absolutely loaded. If they can stay healthy, I think they're going to have an awesome year. But for DFS purposes, that's a lot of mouths to feed in that starting 5. They should be fantastic defensively, right? I think all 5 of those guys are really good defenders, which obviously makes you a little bit worried for the Knicks. I think this game will be obviously a little bit slower paced as well. I really don't see much on the Knicks that I'm interested in. I'd rank them Brunson 1, just because he's cheap, 7,600, and then Randall 2, probably the only 2 guys I would consider. And then on the Celtics, their price tags are reasonable, right? Jaylen Brown, 8,300, Drew Holiday, 6,100. They're fine, but it's just so many good players that are gonna, kind of take their turns on offense that it's just hard to get excited about any of these guys. I mean, Tatum all the way up there, 10.4. I can't imagine paying that price tag for him with the whole team healthy. I will say starting five is awesome. The bench drops off in a hurry for the Celtics. They're really pretty thin on the bench. So I do think the starting five is going to play a ton of minutes for the Celtics. So like in really fast-paced, good matchups, there could be opportunities or they get one or two guys out. I think there's going to be some really good opportunities for the Celtics. I just don't think it's tonight with everybody healthy in a slower-paced game against the Knicks. I'm mostly going to pass on the Celtics. I think Jaylen Brown at 8,300 is my favorite of the bunch, but I'm not even that excited about him, to be honest.
All right, AP, thoughts on this game? It's not an appealing one, I think, from the DFS side.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can be quicker with this one. If it does stay close, like Jalen Brunson, I mean, he's a guy that has shown a lot of upside at that price, can take over a game. But again, you got RJ Barrett in there as well. Julius Randle, guys that can take usage away from him. And the Celtics right now, I'm excited to watch this team, but too many cooks in the kitchen. I want to wait and see. Like Drew Holiday, like he feels like that trap play. It's like, oh man, 6.1K for Drew Holiday. You got to be careful with the projection right there because I do think there's a lot of plays where we know the usage is going to be, we know the role might be a little bit more defined because what happens with the Celtics? The ball is going to be what? In Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum's hands. It's what always happens with the Celtics team. So just be a little cautious there. I am excited to watch this game, though. I think it's going to be a nice little battle against Boston in the Knicks, but I'm going to be under for DFS.
I think Holiday is going to take a pretty big backseat, especially early on to Jaylen Brown, to Tatum, maybe even to Derek White, right? He's that kind of player where he has no problem deferring the usage while he kind of figures out his role with the longtime Celtics. So yeah, Drew, I'm with you, AP. I think Drew Holiday is somewhat of a trap today.
So like we the people love this guy. Like my worry with the Celtics is what are they going to do in the paint? Like Porzingis is not a guy that's just going to bang down low, So that is one that they had Big Bob Williams, but obviously he's gone now. And Horford's getting old. So we'll see if that's going to be a liability for them as the season goes on.
Yep, I am curious to see how that paint play plays without Bob Williams, right? It's a whole different setup now. But, yeah, I mean, Mark says Holiday triple-double potential. Not. They play with one basketball, man. Not tonight. Maybe in futures, but not tonight.
They play a lot of iso ball, too. Like, there were times where Boston started passing and looking really nice, but I feel like they too often fall back into that kind of isolation game, so which takes away from assists upside potential.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like the spot for him. He's talked about, hey, he's going to be more active on the defensive end because of this, and honestly, like he's kind of going to be in a Malcolm Brogdon type role where, like, I mean, sometimes they're just going to be like, okay, Drew, like it's maybe a back-to-back or it's been a long season. They're going to just like ease off him. Now I know that doesn't matter for tonight as much, but yeah, I just don't think that's the case, but we'll have to see. Maybe you'll be right, Mark, but if that's the case, go over to FanDuel and DraftKings and bet that Drew Holiday triple-double. I bet it's a good line for you. I'll tell you that. You definitely got to be getting some good plus money on that one. Let's keep this thing moving along. Minnesota, Toronto. I love me some Anthony Edwards. Ant's my guy, but 9-6. It's expensive to start the season, especially in this matchup, right? A lot of length that makes it a little bit tougher, even though I think Ant is matchup proof. Then we got Pascal Siakam, which, Pascal Siakam, he's fun to roster. They do have a lot of length there, but sometimes you can get into some foul trouble, right? It can be a real up and down experience when it comes to Pascal. Likely won't have a lot of ownership in this game overall. I think a lot of these players are just kind of getting overlooked completely. But does that mean we should play them? DC, do you think this game's a play or a fade?
I think mostly a fade. I will say, especially for a 12-game slate, this is like as healthy as we're going to get these teams literally probably all year, right? Opening night. We'll start with the crazy injury news probably on Friday once we get another full slate back in there. So what that means is it's like none of the studs look like they're amazing plays to me. And there is value, right? We talked about, Obi Toppin in the 3K range. There is definitely room to pay up for at least one, maybe two studs. And I think Anthony Edwards is in the equation there, right? Like I talked about trying to pick out breakout stars for rookies or sophomores. Edwards is neither of those, but he does seem to be a guy on the ascension. I know you're a fan, Mangone. He had an awesome offseason. He's a guy who's improved drastically every year he's been in the league. And frankly, I think he's going to take another step forward. So it's certainly possible we look at this $9,600 price tag in a couple of weeks, and it seems cheap because he just takes another big leap and, puts up 30 real points per game and fills up the stat sheet. I think that's all possible for Anthony Edwards. It is a tough matchup, right? I assume he's going to be guarded by OG Anunoby, one of the best defenders in the league all game here, frankly. So that certainly does have me a little hesitant on Edwards. Karl Anthony Towns had a monster preseason, huge usage, finally letting it fly from deep, which I've been saying he should do. He's the best shooting big man of all time, and he's only taken 5 or 6 threes a game. I think that could be up around 8+ this year. So at 8,600, I don't mind him, but it's crowded for Minnesota. You can say the same thing about Toronto. The one guy I am looking at, Scotty Barnes, looked like he is going to take on a bigger role for this team. If you look at what he did in the preseason, he was a monster. No Fred VanVleet, obviously. 6,700 for Barnes seems like a pretty reasonable price tag. He's definitely my favorite play on the Raptors and in this game in general. And then on the Wolves side, I'd rank it Edwards 1, Towns 2. I don't think I'll go beyond those two. Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 3K does project as one of the best point per dollar values on this slate, but I'm just not sure if 18 or 20 points even at 3K is enough, because there is plenty of value on this slate in general. So I do think he's a reasonable play if you really need another 3K guy, or maybe you're low on top end for whatever reason. But overall, this game kind of lukewarm. Scotty Barnes, the guy I'm looking at most closely.
Yeah, one thing to call out with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it could be like 7:05 and you're like, oh shit, he's not starting, and you're just tilted, right? So I think that's worth calling out. He's
not going to start, I don't think.
I think some people think he might start. I mean, there's a chance.
For instead of Kyle Anderson, yeah, I guess.
I think it's one or the other is going to start there. I think some people think it could be.
Something. The Raptors are big though. They got so much size. So I think Kyle Anderson would. Again, we don't know. We'll see when the.
I agree. I agree with you. I'm just saying. I think in general that some people in the industry think it's Naw, and then some think it's Kyle Anderson. I don't know which one's going to be, but I just think. I think it's Anderson. If I had to pick, I'm in agreement with you guys. See someone in the chat. Naw will 100% start. I don't think it's 100%, but my point is, I think Naw compared to Obi Toppin chalk is not as good of a chalk. I think Obi Toppin is a better chalk play than Alexander-Walker. That's just my
clearly, yeah.
I don't think Naw's chalk, but I'm just saying as a value, and that can be reflected in ownership.
Yeah, I mean Naw's way more scoring dependent, and on a slate like this where you have so many options, he feels like one of those value trap pieces because of the adjustments that can be made too. If the Raptors start, enforcing their will just with their size, they're going to make some adjustments there. So that would be my one concern.
Yeah, agree there. What are you doing with this game though, AP? Obviously, some good plays, but not amazing, right? You can make the case for Ann Edwards could have a ceiling game, but I don't think a lot of guys project as really good plays here.
Yeah, I think Schroeder's fine at 5'3". You can play him at point guard, shooting guard, position. And Scotty Barnes, he looked really he's the guy that needs to take his game to the next level. The price is very fair. We know that he's a guy that they give a lot of minutes to as well. So I'm on board with Scotty Barnes. Siakam, kind of difficult there. He does have upside, so it's I'm under on him, but I don't think I'm gonna have a lot of them just because of there's so many other good plays at that position, and it's tough to get there when they're fully healthy. And then on the other side of this one, I want to play Ant. 9.6 is a crazy price tag for a healthy team. I still think that there are paths to where he could hit the number that we need him to hit just because I think he's that good. But it's tough when this Timberwolves team is fully healthy. So I wish he was 8.7. If he was 8.7, 8.6, I would have a lot more interest. But I just feel like that 9.6 tag a little bit overpriced there.
Yeah, and Nick in the chat says the T-Wolves are bigger than the Raptors, even with Naw starting. Here's the thing. Naw could start, and he could also not close, right? So, that's another factor when thinking through things. For instance, there is a chance Obi Toppin starts and doesn't close if the game doesn't go great for him. They could easily close with a Buddy Hield or something off the bench, right? So that's another kind of thing to think about when you see these guys enter the starting lineup. Like if I'm watching these games today and out of nowhere I see like, like Karis LeVert, he might randomly start tonight, right, for Cleveland. Well, I might look at that and then there's a chance he doesn't close and he could be more fragile chalk. So, but that's the next game up, Cleveland and the Brooklyn Nets. Evan Mobley is someone that we have to like with Jared Allen out. Definitely someone that we're going to want to look at on this slate. I know Darius Garland, he is kind of, he participated in shoot around dealing with an injury. I'm assuming he plays, but if he doesn't play, a Karis LeVert would kind of slide into the conversation as someone that we should consider. Donovan Mitchell, 9.4K in a matchup against Brooklyn. And I think the key thing on Brooklyn to talk about is this team is not the same. It looks the same when you kind of look at the team, but they do have Ben Simmons back, right? So Ben Simmons is going to muddy some things up with the way he plays the game. He's not a guy to stand in the corner. He's a guy that needs the usage in his hands. And I think it's going to steal from some of these players overall. DC, we like playing the Nets towards the end of last year. A lot of usage got gained over to Mikal Bridges. Cam Johnson really broke out and looked amazing. I don't know what to do with these guys over here. I think I'm a little more cautious with playing some Nets on this slate, and I'm more interested in playing someone like Evan Mobley, who seems like a pretty good, safe option here with Allen out.
Yeah, Net side, I'm off. I think they're going to play 11 or 12 man rotation in this game. Looks like they're pretty much healthy. They've got some guys that need minutes. I'm not. If people want to buy into Ben Simmons for the seventh straight year, then go ahead. I'll believe when I see it with Ben Simmons. I know the price is good at $5,900, but I'm personally not going to go there. Mikal Bridges obviously had the awesome second half of the year after being traded from Phoenix, but the Nets are healthier than they were for a lot of those games. I think they're going to spread it around. I think the fantasy production on the Nets is going to be pretty evenly spread around, and the $7,800 tag for Bridges, just a little steep, I think, on this particular slate. So I'm pretty much entirely off the Nets. The Cavaliers side, though, I think is pretty damn interesting. Obviously, Garland, one of the few question marks we have on this slate. It does seem like he's expected to play, but he also missed the last, 2 weeks of preseason. I think he only played in the one game in the preseason, and even that game, he played very little. He scored 2 points. So it'll be interesting to see, one, if he plays, and two, if he does, how much usage and minutes he can handle. Man, the Cavaliers get pretty thin beyond kind of their studs, right? Obviously, with Jared Allen out, Rubio's out, Garland maybe somewhat limited. I mean, right now the projected starting 3 and 4 are Max Strus and Georges Niang, who are, for the most part, just kind of like catch and shoot guys, right? They're really not guys that do much offensively at all. So what's that leave? It leaves Garland, Mitchell, LeVert off the bench. But even like you go to the rest of the Cavs bench, it's, guys like Okoro and Damian Jones and, Ty Jerome, just guys that aren't going to do a lot. So I think the studs for Cleveland, they almost have to carry the load here. So listen, if Garland misses, I think Donovan Mitchell becomes maybe the best stud on this entire slate, even at 9,400. And even if Mitchell plays, I still like Garland quite a bit. I think Mitchell will go overlooked. And then Evan Mobley, I think he's going to be popular, so this isn't some hot take, but I think he's one of the very best plays on the entire slate. 6,300. You like that he's starting at center, normally has to play power forward, but I think his better position is center with Jared Allen out. And he's another guy, young player. He came into the league like very raw offensively, right? But the defense was incredible. His game has been developing. You have to assume after the offseason, he's a little bit better kind of in all facets of the game, given how young he is and what we've seen from his development going forward. Matchup is pretty good against the Nets. And he's going to have more usage in this game than you typically would. So absolutely love Evan Mobley at 6,300. He's more expensive on FanDuel. He's up in the 7,400, so $1,100 more. I think he's a fantastic player over there, especially with the 3 points for blocks and steals and all that. So yeah, Mobley, I think one of my favorite play in this game by far, but also one of my favorite plays on the entire slate.
Definitely a good play. And also, reminder, it's a 12-game slate, so we got a lot more games to go through. On a 12-game slate, don't play Caleb Houston, and don't play Tristan Thompson. That's my advice. That's my advice for today. That's it. Do not play.
I mean, like sometimes we like laugh at those plays, and it's like then they go off. These ones I'm like feel very, very good about laughing.
Especially Tristan Thompson.
Yeah.
If Tristan Thompson or Caleb Houston are on the winning lineup, I will stake someone on the next show for like $100 ticket or something. I will stake.
I'll match that. I'll match that too.
There we go.
Triple it. We got three. Yeah.
we feel good about this. AB, let me go to you. Justin Jackson Jr., Evan Mobley. Thoughts?
I mean, yeah, like both are graded out as like easily two of the like top 5 plays, on the slate. If I had to only pick one, it would be Evan Mobley though. Between the two, it's just I think the matchup's a little safer. JJJ historically always in foul trouble, and he's up against Zion, and Zion looks pretty good. Seems Zion's very motivated right now, and he's a guy that can get someone in foul trouble. Maybe he should thank that. What was that girl's name?
Mariah Mills.
Mariah, the OnlyFan lady. She has turned Zion into an absolute beast, is what I'm hearing. I'm excited to watch him play tonight, but I've seen good things. But I think the matchup, this matchup, the total is kind of indicative of what we're going to see, a slower paced game. Even though the Nets are smaller, they're a very good defensive team out on the wings, and that's going to make life a little tough for the Max Struses, the Donovan Mitchells of the world. But Donnie Mitch, he can always take over a game. If Garland somehow missed, he would become an amazing play. But it has to go through Mobley, and I like the matchup here against Nick Claxton, one that he should be able to really take advantage of. Like, I am getting very aggressive on Mobley because of his flexibility too. You can play him at the power forward, center, forward spot, utility spot. I think there's just so much value in that too. I want him to be one of my highest owned players because if he goes down, this is going to be a tough one for Cleveland. And then on the other side, I'm with DC. It's just these guys, like Bridges is priced way up. We should see a little bit wider of a rotation. If Dorian Finney-Smith comes in and hits some 3 balls, he could get more run. Same with like a guy like Royce O'Neal. They got Lonnie. They got a deeper team now. So like I'm not as excited about the Nets. I'm going to be underweight on their side. And then, with Ben Simmons, 5.9K, there's a lot of plays at his position that are much better than him. Will I have him in my pool? Yeah, but I'm not going to have much of him. Like maybe 5% max. I have no idea. Like I'm not a Simmons guy. So. He's on mute. We'll just let him go.
I'm glad he's on mute. I don't need to see his.
I was on mute, but I was gonna say, are you borrowing Holden's OnlyFans account too? Are you also in on the shared password?
Yeah, we pass it around here at RPS.
Yeah, we help each other out, but I was on mute there. But okay, we got 6 games left, and I will say some we're gonna breeze through. We might get through this one quick. There's one guy I don't mind in this game. Speaking of guys that are definitely on a little bit of a revenge tour, I mean, Tyler Hero's name was thrown around all season long, right? All off season, basically saying, trade him to Portland. Oh, he's not enough. Like 6.3K in a matchup against Detroit. I actually think this is not a bad play here, especially with them losing Gabe Vincent and some other plays. They seem thinner with their bench, where someone like a Tyler Hero is going to have to kind of pop up a little bit more and really step up to the plate. So DC, do you have any interest in this Miami Pistons game? For me, it's Tyler Hero, I think, and that's really it. What about you?
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of expect Miami to start a little bit slow. I mean, I certainly wouldn't touch Jimmy Butler at 8,800. He's a guy who seems like he kind of turns it off and on and is able to do so, right? One of the few guys in the league who can kind of do that. Comes to playoff and you just get a different version of him. I don't think you want to pay 8,800 for the beginning of the season. Jimmy Butler, obviously capable of a big game. But yeah, Tyler Hero makes sense, 6,300. I do think surrounded by Butler, Lowry, Kevin Love, like it would make sense to kind of lean on Tyler Hero. Maybe he's got something to prove after the Damian Lillard trade rumors all offseason. So that makes sense to me. Not a priority play, but yeah, I do think he would be the guy in the Heat that I'd be most likely to go to. Pistons side, yeah, I mean, another team that I'll be watching closely, Kate Cunningham, coming back from, he looked really good early on, then missed most of the season with the injury. I do think he's another one who could have a breakout season. But at 9K, I'm going to have to see it first. It's just not any sort of discount on Cunningham. We went to a couple other young players who DraftKings is not giving us any rookie discount on coming up here in a second. But yeah, pretty much off the Pistons. I do expect Miami to play well defensively from the get-go, but maybe not as good on offense.
All right, AP, I'm with DC. Like Jimmy Butler on October 25th does not seem like the time to fire away. I'm more of a Jimmy Butler on May 25th. That sounds like something I'm more interested in. How do you feel about this game, AP?
Yeah, I think the guy that wants to come in and prove something, if anything, is Tyler Hero. So I think it's a good matchup for him too. 6.3K. He's going to be probably I'm under on this game, but I do have a decent amount of Tyler Hero. So everyone, I'm not going to Bam, not going to Jimmy. Can't ever play Kyle Lowry. Not going to go there unless the only time you play Kyle Lowry is if everyone back in the COVID days when he would have to throw the team on his back and they only had 6 viable guys. That's when you play Kyle Lowry. Can't do it here. And then, Jalen, we can't play Pistons. They're going to run a wide rotation. It's just, I'm under on the Pistons.
All right, keep this thing moving along. Next game up, Pelicans, Memphis Grizzlies. Definitely a game to discuss. Zion at 9-7. Seems like an interesting tournament play that's going to just have no ownership. Keep in mind, 12-game slate. A lot of these studs up top are going to not have a lot of ownership, and you can make a case for some of them. I think he is one of the guys you can make a case for. Desmond Bane, 7-4. Definitely think this is a solid spot for him. I also think this Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the better plays on the board. I think you have to like him. And, hey, it is a Valanciunas revenge game, so you can make a case for him with the ceiling that he can show at times at 6.1K. But overall, I think there's some pieces we have to like. Who are some of the pieces you like, DC?
The Grizzlies side is really interesting. Obviously missing John Morant for, 25 games. I think he's suspended for to start the year. And then Steven Adams, he's out the entire year. Did they announce that, I think, just recently?
Yeah, I believe he's out the whole year. I saw that the other day, and my buddy was tilting best ball. He's like, I can't believe Adams is out. This is bullshit. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. It's NBA.
I didn't get in the NBA best ball street, so I can't comment on that. But it leaves the Grizzlies, pretty damn thin to start the year, right? I think Marcus Smart at 5,800, I think he's going to have a big role in this team. You look at that Grizzlies bench right now. Obviously, they got rid of Tyus Jones as well. There's not a lot there. His backup is the aging Derrick Rose. I think Smart, if he plays well, and Memphis is playing well, I think he's going to play big minutes and have a much bigger role on this team than he did on the Celtics, at least until obviously John Morant gets back. So I kind of like Marcus Smart at 5,800. I certainly prefer him to a guy like Ben Simmons at that same price point. Desmond Bane, this team's kind of lacking offense, right? I mentioned I like Smart, but he's not really a super high usage guy. I think Desmond Bane, could be looking at 20-plus shot attempts in this game, 7,400. I like him in the mid-range. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think, is if it wasn't for I hate this matchup for him, honestly. I think he has to guard Zion. I don't think there's really any other way to do it. And Zion's going straight to the basket, right? That's just how he plays. He draws a ton of fouls. And Jaren Jackson Jr. has a big problem with that anyway. So I kind of think he's a little bit boom or bust because those could be blocks too, right? Jaren Jackson Jr. is good enough to kind of swat those Zion attempts, get 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks. We know he led the league in blocks last year. I think that's possible. It's also possible he's on the bench 2 minutes into this game due to foul trouble. We know he's going to be chalky. I kind of lean being at or over the field on Jaren Jackson. I just think the upside is too high to avoid him at 6,600. But there's definitely risk there. And then Xavier Tillman, who's going to start at center for Memphis at 5K, especially if Jackson gets in foul trouble, he could be looking at big minutes. Now, he could get in foul trouble himself too, right? He's going to have to be defending the rim as well against Zion, Jonas Valanciunas, but I think he's a little bit safer than Jackson in terms of foul trouble. I like him at 5K. So I'm in on this Grizzlies team. I mentioned they're the one team that I do think you can play 4 guys from. I wouldn't mind a team with Smart, Bain, Jackson, and Tillman. I think if things go well for this team, all those guys are going to be out there for big minutes. The matchup seems fine to me, assuming they can avoid foul trouble. So I'm very much in on Memphis. Pelican side, it's tough with Zion in there. Right now they got McCollum, Ingram, Zion, who are all high usage guys, and they've got to share the ball. They're all relatively expensive. So I'm kind of taking a wait and see on the Pelican side. I do think Zion would be my preferred play among the Pelicans, but I definitely prefer the Memphis side. And I'd say Memphis overall is my favorite team tonight.
Yeah, Memphis definitely one of the better teams on the slate. Someone was asking me about Zion's price tag on FanDuel. I just wanted to pull it up just because I don't know, maybe it's a little bit cheaper over there than it is on DK. He is, I can't find it for some reason. He is, what is he? Oh, 8.7. Yeah, 8.7 is not bad. I like it a little bit more there. So I'll definitely have some Zion over there. And I think on DK, you can even make a case for it just because of what the upside could be with him attacking the rim, especially if he did get a Jaren Jackson Jr. in foul trouble. But I'm going to go over to AP because the chat is going crazy about Jaren Jackson Jr. getting in foul trouble, no doubt. I mean, yeah, everyone told me Kirk Cousins was bad in prime time, and look at him the other night, right? I mean, I'm not saying I just want to say we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's a really good spot for Jaren Jackson, so I would not exclude him from your pool. I would get exposure to him. I think the spot is too good where you have to have exposure, but you got to kind of decide, are you even with the field, over, under? What's your thoughts on that and the rest of this game?
Yeah, I mean, definitely over, but I do got to shout out my boy from Memphis, Jeremy, Jay Douglas. Shout out to you. Little Memphis insider. So he's good buddies with a couple of the trainers there. And yeah, I mean, DC is going to like this because the Grizzlies very, very thin. No Santi Adama. It's Big T's boy, Kenny Lofton, and David Roddy are the 2 bigs there to back up. If you believe Jaren Jackson Jr. gets in foul trouble, and if you believe they attack Tillman, because Tillman's going to have to play a lot of minutes here and he's 5K, those are going to be the other bigs that can get in there and get it done. It's a massive slate. It's more of like if it was a 5-game slate where I would introduce those guys, so I can't get there. But again, it just shows that this is going to be one of the tighter rotations that we see. I love Desmond Bain, love Marcus Smart. This backcourt has to get it done. You got to think Marcus Smart steps up his game. No jaw. And he's done it. He showed that he could do it with the Celtics.
Who are the 2 bigs? Lofton, and who's going to be?
It's Kenny Lofton and David Roddy. Kenny Lofton's our boy, Big T's guy. So might have to just bump up. Like, if you truly believe that, like, if the Pelicans were smart, they would just attack Jaren Jackson and Xavier Tillman, put the Grizzlies in a really, really tough spot. Because then they're going to be forced to open up and go to some of these bench guys. And the one thing about Kenny Lofton, he's funny. He's a big boy, but he can produce too. So, again, it's a 12-game slate. Like, we already have Obi Toppin 3K. There's no reason at all to go to a play like that. It's more of like a 4 or 5, 6-game slate type of thing. So I can't get there. But, again, I'm just throwing that out there.
So if Tillman gets in foul trouble, we're pretty damn sure to be Lofton in there first.
I mean, yeah, like it would be Roddy or Lofton, and
it might
Lofton's going to be
either Jackson or Tillman, right? Or
yeah, well, you got Joe Val. So here's the thing too, and why I don't like Joe Val as much. Like, Grizz could go smaller too, and the Pelicans could match that, which means they just bring Joe Val out. You got Larry Nance, you got Zion. So there's a lot of things that the Pelicans can do matchup-wise to adjust. That's why I'm very low on Joe Val, and I don't like him alongside Zion either. So I think the Pelican side is much tougher. Zion, much like I can't remember who I was talking about. I wish his price tag was a little bit lower. I would have a lot more interest in him, but 9.7 just seems a little bit too high.
All right, lots of good takes there, lots of good information to digest, and we know the Memphis Grizzlies. They always like to go.
Oh, hey, look at that! We got him in chat too. See, there you go.
Yeah, he was in the chat talking.
I have to get in on some Kenneth Lofton Jr. to be honest. I'm intrigued.
I mean, we already got Obi. I mean, what you need to happen is Obi Toppin to bust, and then you need Jaren Jackson and Xavier Tillman. It's a lot of it's a big ass DC on a 12-game slate. It's a really big ass.
I'm playing Toppin. I'll play them together maybe.
All right, next game up, OKC in Chicago. OKC, man, they look like a lot better team this year. Definitely going to be excited to watch them, but I'm not super excited about them from a DFS perspective tonight. Playing against Chicago, expect them to just be a little bit slow all season long. And also, Chicago is definitely a side we have to talk about. DeRozan is 7'1", Vucevic is 6'9", and Levine is 6'8". Those are really cheap price tags for those guys. You even got Kobe White at 4'6", who could see himself in the starting lineup today. So overall, these Bulls are interesting. DC, are you buying or selling these values here?
I wish they were more expensive because I don't really want to play the Bulls.
Correct.
But
spot on.
But 6.8K for Zach Levine, 7'1" for DeRozan. I mean, you have to consider them. Those are just kind of egregiously low price tags. Same thing for Vooch at 6.9K. I mean, nothing's really changed with this team. These guys are all going to play big minutes. They're going to carry the load offensively. Kobe White, Patrick Williams, the other two guys in the starting lineup are pretty low usage guys. So it's going to be the same big three for the Bulls. And they're all cheap. So, I have no problem playing those guys. I don't think you could play two together. I don't think I would play all three in the same lineup. I think I like Levine the best, but I could be convinced otherwise. I do like the Thunder to win this game. They're 2.5-point dogs. I really like this Thunder starting lineup. I like where they're going. I'm excited to see Chet Holmgren out there, who I think is going to have some big fantasy games. Wish he was cheaper than that $6,500 price tag, but even so, I think he's someone interesting. And then Jalen Williams, they've got two of them, obviously, the wing type player. I think he's one of those guys who's going to be a breakout star this year. Kind of started the second half of last year. I really, really liked what I saw from him. It's tough with how many guys, SGA, Giddey, even Dort are all guys who need the ball in their hands. Chet Holmgren's going to have some usage. So it's he's not a huge priority on the team. I just think he's way better talent than the 6K price tag reflects. And I do think he'll fly under the radar. So he's one of those Jalen Williams I'm talking about, one of those last guys in for me. But I'm not paying the 10.5 or 7.5 for Josh Giddey with everybody healthy right now. But this is another one I'll be watching closely. We kind of want to see how OKC operates early on.
All right, AP, healthy OKC team and an underpriced Bulls team that I'm not super excited about, but here we are. I think we have to kind of consider them. What are you doing with this Bulls side?
Yeah, so we know OKC likes to run with pace. Josh Giddey, Shea, both guys that push it. Even the second unit, the guys that rotate in, they like to push it in transition as well, which is going to be good, which is going to be beneficial for the Bulls. So I think we have to consider Zach LaVine, DeRozan. It was DeRozan that had a monster start to the season last year. He was optimal in two of the first few slates. So he absolutely nuked. And then centers against bigs. And again, if I'm the Bulls, get Vucevic down there with Chet and let him bang a little bit instead of just pulling up, shooting 3-point jumpers. I think that's where the Bulls want to live in this matchup against OKC. I have some interest here. The OKC side, much tougher to play just because Shea is 10-5 and him and Giddey take from each other. So more interest in the Bulls side.
All right. I saw something about Wembanyama, but no, it's nothing. It's something about standing room tickets. I got distracted. I thought Wembanyama was randomly out, but we're good. He'll be playing tonight. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. We'll get to that game here shortly. I actually want to talk about this game a lot. Kings and Utah Jazz. I want to talk about De'Aaron Fox. He gets an amazing matchup against Utah. Utah's a team that we would attack with point guards a lot last year. I am not afraid of the rim protection in Utah. Yeah, they have Walker Kessler, and he's been pretty solid, but I think it's a really good spot where a guy like Walker Kessler won't be able to keep up with the speed of a De'Aaron Fox when he gets down low. So I like Fox. I think it's a really good spot to get contrarian up top. DC, I'll go over to you. Any interest in Kings and Utah?
Yeah, you got to. I mean, one of the highest totals on the slates in that 233, 234. Utah kind of running out, kind of a weird starting lineup, right? Markkanen, Collins, Kessler, I think are all projected to start in this game. That's three pretty big dudes out there. I'm interested to see how the Kings respond. I don't know. This game confuses me a little bit on where to go. I think the Kings, or the Jazz side rather, seems somewhat deep. I think they're going to run 9-10 guys at least in this game. So kind of wait and see over there, especially how Markkanen, Collins, Kessler, how they all interact, how the minutes shake out between those guys. Horton Tucker at 4,500, I think, is a little bit interesting. I just don't know if you need the value on this particular slate. But yeah, Mangone, I think Darren Fox, 8,700, good price tag, great matchup, like you said. Should be a fast-paced game. And, Fox, we saw the big step forward last year. So Fox makes some sense to me. And this game in general, it's one of those games I'm kind of afraid I'm missing something, but I don't find myself getting a whole ton of pieces from it.
Yeah, I think you could make the case for Talon Horton Tucker. We know what he can do with the usage that he gets, but this is it's not like him last year where everyone was out, right? So, AP, I'll go over to you though. What are you doing with this game?
Yeah, so De'Aaron Fox, 8.7. I think he's a really great play. The pay, a nice total here, 233. We can definitely attack this Jazz team with opposing point guards. I do like Walker Kessler, though. I think Walker Kessler kind of just goes a little bit overlooked. I think he makes for a really good tournament play. They need him in there for a rim protection to try and slow down De'Aaron Fox. But Fox, you got to give him props. Last year worked on the mid-range and three-point game as well. Definitely developing. But this Kings team is better when Fox is driving at the bucket. And, the tough part is Sabonis. I always want to play him, but man, the price tag's up there. I got him in the pool. I'm not fading him. I think I'll probably be like, I can't see myself getting a ton of them. But the Jazz do need size, so that's why I'm playing Kessler. And then you have Talon Horton Tucker as well. Lauri Markkanen, he was on shout out to Kay Fallick last year. Kay Fallick got on Lauri Markkanen early and often. He was in the first 3 months of the NBA. He was overall optimal 7 different times, which is kind of crazy to think about. The best overall lineup you could possibly have on a night. Lauri absolutely nuked, but now the price is adjusted. Now he's 9.3, and he's definitely scoring dependent. So I'm going to be much lower on him. So THT and Kessler on the Jazz side. Clarkson, he's okay. And then Fox on the Kings side.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Cruz says he'd rather pay $400 for Halliburton. I'll tell you this, I love Hallie too. There's some really good spend-up guards that I think are just getting overlooked today. So I think that's a key thing to kind of look at when building some tournament teams. When I do my 3-max teams, I'm probably going to have, a spend-up guard or two just to kind of get a little bit of a different build. So yeah, I'll definitely be in on that. One of the spend-up guards that we'll talk about is Luka, and that's the next game up. So that's perfect segue there. Luka is 11K. We have enough value to easily get him in there if we want. Going up against the Spurs, going up against Wembanyama, two of the futures of the NBA, you could argue. So should be a really fun game to watch. DC, I'll go over to you first. What are you doing with Victor Wembanyama and Luka?
8,500, man, for Wembanyama on his NBA debut. Pretty crazy. I think he's going to be – this probably isn't even really a hot take, but I think he's going to be the highest variance player early on in his career. I think you're going to see some games – where he gets in foul trouble, where he gets benched for making mistakes. Popovich, I think, will have, kind of probably a somewhat heavy hand with him like he does with most rookies. And then I think you're going to see some games where Wembanyama pops off for 60 or 70 DraftKings points. I think he's that type of player. The sheer size of this dude, he's just a complete freak, right? There's just no question about that. But I do think it's going to be kind of hit and miss for Wembanyama early on, and 8,500 feels like a lot. I don't know. Especially, he's going to be a guy where I think I'm going to try to play him when he has 2 bad games in a row, right? And everybody jumps off the Wembanyama train because I think it's going to be hard to predict. I don't think matchups are going to have much to do with it, and I think it's just going to be random when he pops off and things go his way. So I don't know if I'm going to jump on opening night at 8,500. Feels like a lot, but if you look at the production during preseason, he was almost up at 2 fantasy point per minute, which obviously it's the preseason, it's small sample size, but he's capable of big games. So yeah, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, he would be someone I would leave in my player pool. Jeremy Sochan is going to start at point guard, it looks like, for the Spurs, which I think he's interesting at 4,700. Had a pretty good, I believe it was his rookie year last year. I think he's got some upside. Obviously, kind of a surprise that he won the job over Trey Jones. And I do think that kind of speaks to, probably the development that he had over the offseason that he was able to claim that job. So Jeremy Sochan, I think, is my favorite play overall on the Spurs. And then the Maverick side, they're expensive, but Luka and Kyrie both got to be in play here. They just don't have much else beyond those two guys in terms of scoring. They've got to carry the load offensively, assist-wise. Derek Lively, I'm kind of a known college basketball hater, so I didn't watch much of him at Duke. 6,100 feels like a lot to me. And then who are the other starters? Grant Williams and Derek Jones Jr. It should be all Luka and Kyrie. And is it confirmed Luka's playing? I think he's still questionable, right? So, if he sits, I think it would be the Kyrie show tonight. So might be worth saving a roster spot to kind of see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I assume he plays, but it's the NBA. You never know. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. Let's go over to UAP. You like Luka. I assume he's going to be someone you'll have exposure to, and we have exposure to some points Sochan tonight.
Yeah, actually, so Luka practiced this morning. I thought he looked fine. The first game, he's not missing this. And DC, you hit the nail on the head. This Mavericks team doesn't have a lot else. And what does that mean? And people are going to question, is it Kyrie or Luka? We've seen Luka do very well with Porzingis when they were together. Luka did not lose much when he played alongside him, and it's still Luka's team. I think the upsides that we have all the value in the world. Luka might be my highest owned guy on the slate. Now, if he gets ruled out, I just shift to Kyrie, I guess, and hope he balls out against the Spurs. And but yeah, I think Luka, we got to go there today. It'll be interesting watching this team. And the Spurs, Wembanyama, I don't think they're going to push him. I got him right around 20. I think 26 to 30 minutes max. It's Pop that we're talking about. And there's no one more tilting to target than the Spurs players. So I'm definitely very cautious with these guys. Sochan, I'm fine with him, though, at 4.7K. You can play him at the point guard, small forward position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kyrie would be a really great pivot. I would agree with you on that. I'm trying to figure out this last game. I know it's the Clippers game, but I don't know who I could even like in this game. I think you could make a case for a Russell Westbrook if he's back and everything and, starts playing like he was at the end of the playoffs. But I don't know what to really do with this game, AP. Sure, you can make a case for Scoot Henderson. All the usage could be there. But first game back, do I want to take a chance on it at 5.8K? You look great in the preseason. DC, I'll go over to you. Last game of the night, getting any exposure to this game?
No, passing on the Clippers. I do think they'll win this game fairly handily. But when Westbrook, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard are all healthy and in the starting lineup, which frankly probably won't be all that often, I'm going to look elsewhere for the most part. I'm just not paying those price tags when all three are healthy. All three guys obviously kind of need the ball to perform, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to play these guys when one of them's out, or frankly there'll probably be a lot of opportunities when two of them are out, but that's not tonight. So I'm not on the Clippers unless there's unexpected late news, you got to swap or something like that. But yeah, right now pretty low on the Clippers overall. And the Blazers, I think Scoot's interesting, 5,800. He's another one who could prove to be we could be looking back in a month and say, man, 5,800 Scoot was way too low for the type of upside he brings to the table. I think that's possible. But it's hard to play him over some of these other guys. That's a really good pricing range for plays. So, yeah, kind of a wait and see in general on this game. I think the Blazers, too, could potentially struggle quite a bit out of the gate. Wouldn't be surprised to see them get blown out in a few games. So, kind of off the Blazers to start the year, and I'll wait and see how they play.
AP, thoughts on this final game?
Yeah, I think the Clippers, all these guys are going to play. I'm not going to be on it. Westbrook's 6'5", but he's alongside Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. He does have peripheral upside. That's what you're banking on here. I just think there's better plays ahead of him. And then the Blazers, I do think Scoot is interesting. Maybe gets a little bit over-owned here. There's a lot of unknowns. This team, Blazers could go deep. You have Ayton, and then you got Bob Williams backing him up. You have Shaedon Sharpe, who looked good last year. Brogdon, newly acquired. Jabari Walker. And then Grant, Thibault, Simons, who's arguably very good also. So I think this Blazers team could play pretty deep. So more of a wait and see approach for me.
All right, got a couple things to say before we get on out of here. One, we'll do plays of the day. Two, I want to say Up the Lock Show coming up next with JSU. I believe Big T and Holden. It might be Phallic instead, though. But stay tuned. Check that out. They'll be breaking it all down for you guys. So be sure to get on the premium side. Use that code. Code is NBA15. Get you 15% off. Be able to watch that Up the Lock Show, get in the Discord, and get all the content over here at Run Pure Sports. And then a couple of things since we've been on the air. What's gone on in the NBA? Magic lineups out, normal lineup you'd expect. Same with the Knicks. LaMelo Ball could be limited to 30 minutes, so that's worth calling out. We got the Rockets lineup, pretty standard lineup that you would think, and then Cam Johnson expected to be on a minutes limit. So that's kind of the news that has happened. JSU will obviously break down the rest of that, but for now, we got to go over to the plays of the day. So let's go to you first, DC. Who is your Snyder Soldiers play of the day?
My soldier today, I think he puts a stamp on this Memphis team in his debut at home, opening night. Guy who feeds off the crowd. Marcus Smart, I think, comes out with a big game for the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. Leads them to a win. Plays big minutes, fills up the stat sheet, and hopefully goes a little bit overlooked with all the value on the Grizzlies anyway.
All right, I'm up next. My Snyder Soldiers play of the day. Listen, I talked about these spend-up guards. There's a lot of good ones to go to. The one I'm going to go to definitely is De'Aaron Fox. We'll go with him. 8.7K. He'll be my play of the day. AP, the man on a heater, won 20K the past 2 days, looking to go back to back to back. Who is it? Who is the soldier in line for AP Snyder Soldier play of the day?
Oh, man, you're killing me with the Snyder Soldier. Hey, Mangone, you took mine. It was De'Aaron Fox, so you got to like that. I got my other one, though. I have a backup. It's Tyrese Halliburton, 9.1K, and a nice matchup here against the Wizards.
Okay, I mean, I love the Halliburton call, too. So if I would have gave it to you first and you took Fox, I think that I was going to him.
Same thing. I love it.
Yeah, we're arm in arm on similar takes here. So, but that is going to wrap it up for us. You got the Up the Lock Show coming up next with, again, JSU. I think Big T, maybe Phallic, and Holden. They'll be breaking it all down for you guys. So be sure to check that out. Use that code NBA15 to get you 15% off. But for me, Mangone, AP, DC, and Snyder Soldiers, we'll see you guys later.